Chapter 4. The Pandora. On the 14th of March 1790, Bligh and his men arrived in England. When they told the story of the mutiny, the English people were very angry. They sent Captain Edwards in the Pandora to Tahiti. On the 23rd of March 1791, the Pandora arrived in Tahiti. Captain Edwards and his men looked carefully at the island. They could see a lot of trees and small houses, but no English ship. Then a small canoe came out to the Pandora. 3 men in the canoe shouted and smiled. "I think they're Englishmen, sir," a sailor said. "All right," Captain Edwards said. "They can come on the ship. Perhaps they can tell us something." The 3 men were brown and strong, but they wore English sailors' hats and trousers. One of them, a boy about 18 years old, smiled at Edwards. "Good morning, sir. My name is Peter Hayward. I'm a young officer from the Bounty. This is Mr. Stewart and Joseph Coleman, a sailor." "Yes, I see," said Edwards. 3 of you. Where are your friends? Where's Mr. Christian and the Bounty?" Hayward looked worried. "Mr. Christian? He sailed away in the Bounty, sir, a year ago, I think. But we didn't go with them. We waited for you. We aren't afraid." "I see," Edward said. He looked at them carefully. "All right then, tell me your story. What happened after Christian put Captain Bligh in the launch?" "Well, sir," Hayward said, "we threw the breadfruit trees into the sea and sailed here to Tahiti. Otto, the king of Tahiti, was good to us, and a lot of men wanted to stay here. But Mr. Christian was afraid. 'We can't stay here,' he said, 'because a ship is going to come from England.' So Otto gave us a lot of pigs and goats and food. And we sailed to a different island, Tubuai. Some islanders from Tahiti came with us, 8 men, 9 women and 7 boys. But the people of Tubuai didn't like us, and some of us didn't like Mr. Christian. So Mr. Christian sailed the Bounty back to Tahiti and left 16 of us here." And then Captain Edwards was excited. "What did Mr. Christian do?" he asked. "He sailed away in the Bounty, sir." "I see. And how many men went with him?" 9 sailors, I think, sir. But they took 7 Tahitian men and 12 women too." "I see," Edwards said. He looked at him angrily. 16 men stayed on Tahiti, and 3 of you are here. So where are the other 13? Are they waiting for me too on the island?" Well, sir, yes, sir, I mean..." Peter Hayward stopped. He was worried and afraid. "They were here, but they aren't here now," said George Stewart quickly. He put his hand on Peter Hayward's arm. "They sailed away too." "Oh, did they?" Captain Edwards asked. "When?" Hayward and Stewart both spoke at once. 4 days, 2 weeks ago, sir," they said. Then they stopped. Edwards watched them. "I see," he said slowly. "First, you are in a mutiny, and now you tell me things that are not true." "Sailor!" "Yes, sir," one of the Pandora's sailors answered. "Put these 3 men in chains. They are prisoners." "But, sir," Peter Hayward said, "we didn't run away. We came to tell you our story, and Mr. Stewart has a wife." "A wife?" Captain Edwards laughed. "Is she at home in England?" "No, sir, here," Mr. Stewart answered. "She's a Tahitian woman. Her name is Peggy, Mrs. Peggy Stewart, and we have a daughter." Edwards laughed again. "A Tahitian woman. I'm sorry for her, but don't worry. She can come on a ship and see you in your new prison. Look behind you. We have a wonderful prison for you and your friends. Look." The 3 sailors looked behind them. On the deck of the Pandora was a wooden box about 2 meters high and 4 meters long. It had a small door, but no windows. The Pandora's sailors put the prisoners in the box with chains on their arms and legs. Captain Edwards laughed. "There, are you happy now? You can stay there all the way to England." "But my wife, my little daughter," Stewart said. The door closed in his face. "We didn't put Bligh on the launch. Christian did. We came to tell you everything." Edwards laughed, and Peter Haywood said nothing. Captain Edwards caught 11 more men and put them in the Pandora's box too. The Tahitian wives and children came onto the Pandora and cried, but Captain Edwards didn't open the door. For 3 months, the Pandora sailed to different islands, and the prisoners stayed in the box. But Edwards couldn't find Christian or the bounty, so he began to sail home. Near Australia, the Pandora hit the barrier reef. Water came into the ship, and the sailors couldn't stop it. After 12 hours, Captain Edwards said, "We must leave the ship. Get into the boats, men." The prisoners could hear the noise outside, and water came in through the door. Captain Edwards took 3 prisoners out, but then he closed the door. "What about us?" Peter Haywood shouted. "Please, Captain, open the door. Why are you leaving us in here?" "Be quiet, boy," said Captain Edwards. "We're working hard now. The ship is sinking." "But we're going to die. We can't move." George Stewart shouted, "Open the door." But Edwards closed the door and no one helped him. Outside, the first sailors got into the boats and rowed away. Inside the box, the prisoners hit the walls and shouted, but they couldn't move because of the chains. After an hour, a sailor opened the door and helped them out of their chains, but there was very little time. All of them got their legs free, but some couldn't get their arms free. Peter Haywood was nearly the last man to get out. In the sea, he held on to some wood. He saw George Stewart and 4 other prisoners. They couldn't swim because of the chains on their arms. "Help me, Peter," Stewart called, but the sea took Stewart away. Peter Haywood never saw his friend again. Peter Haywood landed on a small island with some prisoners, Captain Edwards and the Pandora sailors. They had 4 boats, but only 1 small barrel of water and some bread. Like Captain Bligh, they sailed to the Dutch island of Timor. Then a Dutch ship took them to England, and they arrived on the 19th of June, 1792. Peter Haywood looked across the water at the green hills and the small houses. "Home," he said quietly to a Dutch sailor. "England is very beautiful, you know. I left here 5 years ago." "Are you going to see your family?" the Dutchman asked. "Not yet," Peter answered. "I must go to my trial first, and the punishment for mutiny, you know." And he stopped. The wind moved through his brown hair. The Dutchman put a hand on his arm. "I know, Peter," he said sadly. "The punishment for mutiny is death."